Hey everyone, for our first video lesson, we're going to be starting off on the simple side of things. What we're going to be doing is laying the foundation for how we will structure and organize all of our projects and the creative assets that we use within them. Now, as I said in my welcome video, this is an incredibly important part of being a creative professional, and I want to make sure you're all prepared in that way before we move any further in the course. So what I'd like you to do is watch the video lesson, then complete the You Try activity afterwards. Then you can move on to the next video lesson and continue working through the module. So let's jump into the lesson. All right, my friends, welcome to our first video lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be learning how to build a project, both at the file level in Finder or Windows Explorer and inside Premiere. Now, there are a number of reasons we do this. First of all, it makes finding our own files much easier when we're working alone. And when you're working at the professional level with a team, it enables everyone on that team to much more easily find video, audio, still images, graphics, various project files, etc. quickly and efficiently, because wasted time is wasted money. So if you want the team you're working with and yourself to be successful, you need to work quickly, efficiently, and in a professional manner. And that starts with a solid foundation and a well-built project. Okay, so we're going to start at the file level. First thing we're going to do is create a new folder. Now, there are a couple of ways to do this. You can right-click and choose New Folder, or you can use a keyboard shortcut. On a Mac, that is Shift-Command-N. There we go, New Folder. On Windows, that is Shift-Control-N. So we're going to click in here and rename this folder. And we're going to use the name Template in all caps, underscore, and the year 2020. All right. So now we'll open up that folder, double click, and we'll begin creating subfolders. So again, using my keyboard shortcut, Shift-Command-N or Shift-Control-N on a PC, creating my first subfolder, and I'm going to call that in all caps, Docs, and that stands for Documents. So this is where you might store scripts, informational sheets, PDFs, anything of a text-based nature that relates to your project. Now, I want to make sure that I don't have Docs selected when I create my next subfolder, because if I do, it's going to go inside Docs, and we don't want that. All right, so make sure I have Template 2020 selected over here and create my next subfolder. I'm going to call this GFX, and that stands for Graphics. All right, next folder is going to be called Media, and this is where your video files will live. Back over to Template, and next subfolder will be MX, and that is an industry standard abbreviation for music. Next is going to be Outputs, and that is where we're going to store the files that we output at the end of the creative process. Our finished products will live here. Next, I'm going to have the project folder, and that's where we're going to store our project files, Premiere, Photoshop, After Effects, etc. And then finally, we're going to have the SFX subfolder, and that stands for Sound Effects. So we've got 7 subfolders here living inside one parent folder, Template 2020. Cool. All right, so now let's jump into Premiere. And what we're going to do is create a new project. Click the New Project button here. And up comes this dialog box asking us a bunch of questions about various aspects related to this project. The first one is what we're going to call it, the name. We're not going to leave it untitled. So what we're going to do is mirror the name of our parent folder here. but we're going to do it in a slightly different way. We're going to capitalize the first letter only, template, and then we're going to put in the year, 2020. And then we're going to add some other information here. Put in an underscore, and then put in your name. That's my name. You type your name, another underscore, and then we're going to put in the date in a very special way, an 8-digit date format, starting with the year, 2020, and today's date, August 16th. Moving on down, we're going to go to the Browse button here to tell Premiere where to store this project. Click on Browse, and we're going to go to the desktop and navigate to our Template 2020 parent folder, and then into, of course, the project folder. Choose. And now we're going to move down to video rendering and playback, particularly the renderer here. Now on a Mac, you'll probably see choices like this: Mercury Playback Engine, GPU Acceleration, Metal, or OpenCL, and then also software only. So if you have a GPU, a graphics processing unit card, a helper card that allows Premiere to more efficiently represent visual elements on screen, you will have these other choices aside from software only. You can see that the metal option here is recommended. Now, if you use software only, Premiere will basically abandon the use of that GPU card, and it will make it more difficult to play back video smoothly. So the long and short of it is, this works better than this. Now, if you're on a PC, you will have choices like this, but they'll probably say something like CUDA, C-U-D-A. So you'll want to choose one of those instead of software only as well. So I'm going with metal here. Moving on down, we have the display format. We want that to be timecode, and then audio, we want to display in audio samples. And then down here in capture, we have a couple of choices here, HDV or DV. What this really means is if we were to capture video from an external device using Premiere, would we want it to represent in 16:9 HDV, or the older format, standard definition 4:3, which is DV? It is incredibly rare that we would actually capture anything with Premiere, but we'll leave it HDV for 16:9 just in case. Moving on to the next tab here, scratch discs. What we want to do here is leave every single one of these choices as same as project. And what that allows is Premiere to easily, automatically organize all of these files, captured video, captured audio, video previews, audio previews, and so on, within our folder structure without us having to think about it. Now, in a professional environment, say maybe a shared storage server environment, you might have different locations for these choices. But for our purposes, we're going to store everything in our parent project folder. All right, moving on to ingest settings here. This is something that we will not use in this class, so we don't have to worry about it. Back over to General. Let's hit OK and launch the interface. All right, and here's our interface. Now, I want you to understand that this is the basic editing interface, and you have different choices about how to view the panels in Premiere and their arrangement using these buttons up here. You've got one for assembly, color, effects, audio, graphics, and so on. You can also go up to window, workspaces, and make choices there as well. But for the purposes of this class, we're going to be sticking with the editing interface. That's what I'd like you to use so that whenever we're talking about the location of things, we're all on the same page. So in the lower left here, we have the project panel. This is where you will store the creative assets that you're going to be working with in an organized fashion. In the upper left, we have the source panel. This is where you can view clips before actually editing them into your timeline. You can audition them, watch them, listen to them, view still images. You can even place in and out points to determine exactly what part of a clip you want to use, that sort of thing. Down here at the bottom, we have the timeline. This is where the clips that you will edit into place will go and create your sequence, a series of clips edited together. Then up here in the upper right, we have the program monitor, and this is where you will view the sequence that you have created down here in the timeline. So these are the four main panels: project, source, timeline, and program. And there are keyboard shortcuts that will take you to them. Shift 1 will take you to the project panel. Shift 2 takes you to the source panel. Shift 3 takes you to the timeline. And Shift 4 gets you to the program monitor. Now there are a couple of other smaller panels in here. We've got all the way over on the lower right, our audio meters, where you can actually view the strength of the audio coming from various clips. And then over here we have the tools panel that houses a lot of very commonly used tools in Premiere. And if you roll over them, you'll actually get an indicator that tells you the name of the tool and the keyboard shortcut associated with it. So we've got the selection tool with a keyboard shortcut of V, track forward select tool with a keyboard shortcut of A, ripple edit tool B, razor tool C, slip tool Y, very commonly used pen tool, keyboard shortcut of P, hand tool H, and the type tool with a keyboard shortcut of T. 95% of the time you're going to be using the selection tool. So heading over to the project panel here, we're going to create our bin structure to house all of our creative assets in that organized fashion. And we're going to use our folder structure at the file level as inspiration to do this. We'll loosely mirror what we've done there. So to create a new bin, there are a couple different things you can do. You can use the new bin icon down here, and it looks like a folder, but it's actually a bin. Please refer to it that way. If you click that, it creates a new bin. And I'm going to name this new bin GFX. Now I want to make sure that when I create my next bin, just like at the file level, I do not have GFX selected, because if I do, it will create a sub bin inside GFX, and we don't want that. So without it selected, I'll hit the new bin icon again, and our next bin will be called Media. Now you can see that these are not in alphabetical order. I can change that by clicking on the name bar up here and arranging them in ascending or descending order. Now to create my next bin, I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut, and that's Command B on Mac and Control B on PC. And this bin will be called MX for music. Next will be SFX for sound effects. Now you can see I skipped over docs, outputs, and project that we have at the file level. We don't have a docs bin because normally you're not going to bring text-based documents into Premiere, because you don't edit with those. And outputs are where the finished products live that we create in this project, and we don't usually bring them back into the project that created them. And then we don't have a project bin because, well, this is the project. But we are going to create one more bin that we don't have as a folder at the file level. And that is the SEQ bin, which stands for sequence. And that's where we're going to store the sequences that we create by editing things into our timeline here. As soon as we drop clips in here or edit them from the source monitor down into the timeline, a sequence will be created. You can see right now that no sequences are present in this timeline. So understand that sequences are housed when you're actively editing in them in the timeline. And then you can store all of your sequences in your sequence bin. Okay, so let's save that project by going to File, Save, or using Command or Control S. And then let's quit out. Premiere Pro, quit Premiere Pro, or Command or Control Q. And here we are at the file level with our Template 2020 parent folder. If we click in and go to the project folder, here's the project that we just created. Living here, properly named, and then alongside it is a folder with autosave projects in it. Premiere will automatically save your project about every 15 or 20 minutes It's a preference you can change, so that in case there's a crash, you can get back at least some of your work. But I'll tell you, you cannot manually save too much. I do it obsessively, and so should you. Because the question of Premiere crashing is not an if, it's a when. It will crash. And if you haven't recently saved, you can potentially lose a considerable amount of work. So save yourself some time and headache and save often. All right, so let's relaunch now. And here it is, proper bin structure, beautifully created. Project is ready to go, ready to import creative assets and begin the editing process. All right, so we'll quit out again. Close our window. And here we have it, our parent folder structure. Everything we need in one neat little package. And this package will serve as the template for every project you create in this class. All right then, my friends, that does it for this video lesson. I'll see you again in the next one.